I think that's when it really first hit me was of the scale of how big this opportunity is when Baz Luhrmann walks into the room and introduces himself to you. I know that I mean, and it was at that moment that I want to dive into this. Like I'm going all in. Like this is so exciting to be a part of.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. My name is Talal, and you're listening to the Popcorn and Soda Podcast, the show where we discuss all things movies, pop culture, and so much more. I want to thank each and every one of you for making me a small part of your day. On today's show, we're joined by a very special guest. He's one of the bright young actors in the industry today. You can now see him portraying the younger version of Elvis Presley himself in what was the movie event of the summer, Elvis, directed by Baz Luhrmann and starring Austin Butler, which you can still catch in theaters and is now available on demand. On the show today, the very talented Chaydonjay. How are you, Chaydon?
Good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. I think this will be fun. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for coming and hang on the show. And we were just talking about this off air just now. We're literally on the opposite end of the world right now. You're in Australia, I'm in Canada, yet here we are, the power of Zoom, right?
Yeah, I know. It's crazy like how this sort of just connects people face to face, just like across the world. Like just in the last 50 years, like you just be able to do all these like new things.
Absolutely right. And I think even more so in the last few years, the world's changed so much where this is
Oh
becoming
yeah,
like an everyday thing, right? It's such a common thing now.
absolutely. Like the amount of
Yeah.
people that like interviews or like me and I'm on Zoom and I have to talk to people like on Zoom and it wasn't like that, even like 5 years ago or I think COVID just changed a lot of that. But it's actually been quite cool because obviously now I get to talk to someone from the other side of the world and yeah, so pretty
Well,
fun.
again, man, like I said, I'm thankful that you're here on the show today. So before we even deep dive into your career, before we talk about Elvis, how have you personally been over these last few years? We mentioned we're living in this crazy time in this world where the last 2 years, especially for someone in the creative arts as yourself, it's changed a lot. So how have you been personally?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? Pretty good actually. Like, over the past, couple years, or at least since doing the film, I've gotten to meet a lot of great people, such as yourself, and
Oh, thank you, thank you.
surround myself with, really, really great people, and just really meet the industry a lot, which has been so amazing. And I think, yeah, like COVID definitely for the past few years has changed things. I know it was really bad over in the US, and we definitely copped it here in Australia as well. And even the Elvis film had to stop like
Yeah.
midway through production, which was crazy. And Tom Hanks getting COVID and everything. And so I think that there were a lot of industries that were deeply affected by COVID, and I definitely think that this is one of them. But I think that Australia has handled it really well, and I think the world now is sort of getting back to the way it was, and
Yeah.
and I'm really glad to see that everything is sort of moving forward again. We're just coming out of the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, fingers crossed, right? Unless there's some
I
crazy
don't
like
want to
10th
jinx
wave.
it. I like,
Don't not jinx it, but yeah. Yeah, totally. You just nailed it. We're getting to a point where we're a few years into this now, and I think we do have a better handling of everything versus at the very start where there's all these questions and these unknown factors about what this really is. And in terms of, for the lack of a better term, Elvis was almost patient zero in Hollywood, where it was like the first movie that was really impacted, right, by the entire COVID just work stoppage worldwide. So we're gonna dive into that, but even before that, Shade, I'm interested in your story. You're still so early on in your career, so where does this really begin for you? What were some of your early influences that ultimately led you to be an actor?
oh, you were. I mean, I started acting when I was 8. Um,
Oh, wow.
and but like just as like most kids sort of start in the industry,
Sure.
just doing work like kids workshops, training, and commercials. I did a lot of commercials
Yeah, yeah.
um back then, and yeah, and then I think sort of like I mean, everyone watches content, everyone watches films, and for someone who's sort of beginning in that industry, my early influences were those people that you would see on camera. I think I was like when I was younger, I was influenced a lot by like Leonardo DiCaprio. Like I think back then he
Yeah,
was like he's still like of course he still is, but back
of
then I was like
course,
Leonardo
Leo, right?
DiCaprio, like you can't get any better than that. And yeah, I think people like that definitely influenced, my love for screenplay a lot. And um I got, really excited to do it. And then so that's when I started working with script work in 2020 when COVID hit, because everyone, especially kids who weren't going to school, had all of this free time. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so I took that opportunity. I was like, I actually really want to get into proper script work and know how to analyze and sort of understand a script, and build a foundation on how to work with one. And so for that whole year, I worked one-on-one with a private coach that whole year the way through. And then by the end of it, I got the audition for Elvis.
Right on, man. And it's you know what? I'm happy for you because these last few years it's been tough, right? And everyone's been trying to find a way to cope through this in their own way. And it looks like acting, well, you've already done a lot of acting, but in terms of your commercial work and everything you spoke about, you kind of really deep dive into it. And I think that's great because you were really productive at your time, and it shows. So what were some of the movies you recall growing up watching that just still stick out in your head that were just, when you watch a movie for the first time and you're like,
Yeah,
wow, this is just,
I gotta say, I get that all of the time. Where like I'm watching something and I'm meant to be watching a movie and I'm looking at it and I'm like, Jesus, this is such a good performance. I'm like drawn into it. But I think, listen, I can't remember that far back, but I know that some of my favorite movies. I think Shutter Island when I was like about
oh,
13, 12. Like, oh my gosh,
that's a
and
classic,
again,
eh?
Leonardo DiCaprio. And I was like, oh man, like, I love that film, especially, that was my group, that was my jam. And at I think it was like 12 or 13, 12 or 13. And this is when the Joker film first came out. And
Okay, yeah.
I couldn't go watch it without like a parent. And so I was like with my parent, I was like, I really want to go see this film. And they're like, you're 12. I'm like, it's for the art. Like I need to see it. It's for the art. And so they took me and they went to see it. And like ever since then, that has always been my favorite performance of all time. Like I remember like leaving the cinema after watching Joaquin Phoenix play, and just complete that performance. And I was just in this sort of shell shock state
Yeah.
where I was like, you know, if I can one day get this good, I can die happy. Like I just blew me away. Like so, I think I was always influenced by sort of those, just eye capturing, you know, complex performances. That there's just had so much to them. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much depth in that performance today. I find it so fascinating that you bring that up because I had a similar experience. It premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival. I remember this till this day. I literally stood in line for 10 hours to get tickets to
Whoa.
get into it. I'll never forget it. And it's so crazy that you have that same experience almost, minus like the 10-hour wait. But I felt the same way. I felt the same way watching the movie and then like stepping out of the theater. It's like you kind of like felt this weird euphoric feeling where you're, what did I just watch? Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's just some of the great actors that just they captivate you that way.
Hmm. Absolutely. Like, yeah, just the talent, the level of talent, level of detail, and yeah, really just creates this sort of state where you're like, I I was so immersed in this story, and it was so alive, and it was so real, and it was so alive, and and it just really captures you. So yeah.
It does. And well, hey, another example of that is Elvis. So right off the bat, man, I would congratulate you on the global success of the film. The film's called Elvis, but it's this puzzle piece of like so many different people coming together to create this cinematic experience, which includes you. So let's start at the very beginning. How familiar were you with Elvis and his music before even landing the role?
Ah, yeah, I tell you what, before I got the role, I actually didn't know a lot. Like I mean, as like
He's
when
a
I
few
first,
generations, like, yeah, right? He's like at
yeah,
least like to what,
you
30
know what I mean.
years. Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like
yeah.
13. Like obviously everyone's heard of his name, but I
Yeah.
was like 13. I was like, I don't listen to Elvis. I don't know that much about Elvis. I know Elvis. I know Elvis, but yeah. And so so when it came to like the audition process, there was a lot of research that I had to do on, the way that he talked, the way that he moved, his interviews that he had, and sort of, the way he sung, and
Hmm.
yeah, all of that, and sort of, really try to absorb as much of it as I could. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so you kind of just brought up the audition process. So working with a director like Baz Luhrmann, who has his own unique style of directing and filmmaking, can be a daunting task for a young actor. So how many times did you go into audition for the role specifically, and what do you remember the most about your initial interactions with Baz?
Oh man, I did my first audition. I think it was November of 2020. I'm pretty sure. And so that was I did a self tape obviously because that was COVID time. So I just did a self
Yeah,
tape of it with my coach. And then I think it was it probably was a week later. I think we got an email, and it was like, oh, we'd like to invite you onto the set of Elvis as a callback. We'd like to invite you into the studios. And that was awesome. Like,
yeah,
to go into the studios midway through, like where everything is sort of going on, and you get to be invited, and to work on it, and as the callback, like actually be there in that space was really amazing. And then so I remember being there with a couple of other boys going for my role, and we were set up in this small soundstage studio, right? And we were in
yeah.
this, and it was like he's Baz had sort of set up this like rehearsal sort of like course, right, through it, as like as my scene, and so he'd sort of put that in the dojo and done it as like sort of like a course of things. And people would, he'd put together groups, and he would get them different groups to sort of go through the whole process and everything. And obviously that was the first time that I had met Baz there.
Right.
He walks in like with like these like Air Force Ones, and his hair and like this style outfit, and
Yeah, he's got
straps
some
on
killer
it.
style, eh?
Yeah. I was like, whoa, like I think that's when it really first hit me, was of the scale of how big this opportunity is when Baz Luhrmann walks into the room and introduces himself to you. You know what I mean? I mean, and it was at that moment that I want to dive into this. Like, I'm going all in. Like, this is so exciting to be a part of. And so I did, the callback audition with the other boys there. We did everything, and then I left feeling actually quite good about it. I felt happy, and that I didn't hold back anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then so it was the next day, like I'm pretty sure like the next morning, that we got an email. And yeah, we got another email and was like, we want to invite you back onto set. Really appreciate this. And so yeah, and then so we went back on set. And that was the first time that I got to try on the outfit. They did all the makeup, they did
Yeah.
all the hair. And yeah, and then that's sort of where it took off from. I didn't see any of those other boys again. And um and I sort of had like I kept on coming back to set again and again for about two weeks. Like I think over the span of 2 weeks or 3 weeks, where I wasn't offered the role, but I would go to set and do this, like sort of be in this like rehearsal phase. You know what I
Right.
mean? Just sort of rehearsing my part and going through that course and learning the movements and how to feel the movements, and meeting all the people within my scene, and sort of getting comfortable and familiar with the group that I was with. And that was awesome, because the best part about that was that Baz gave me all of this time and gave me all of his time to really familiarize me and make me feel comfortable with my part in the film, you know,
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
I it had really settled with me. You know what I mean? And so that was really awesome. And then after the 3 weeks, he called my mum directly on her phone. My mum picked up the phone. She was like, "Hello, who's this?" It's like, "It's Baz Luhrmann." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And so yeah, I got on the phone, and he told me that he'd like to invite me into the family, was his words. And yeah, and then so that's when he offered me the role. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that just sounds basic. And it's interesting. I've read so many stories about how Austin had a very similar experience where it was almost like these workshops It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
it was
Workshop. Yeah.
yeah, right. And that's how he kind of even Baz speaks about it, is that he kind of helps the actor get the role rather than just trying to see if the actor can land it himself. I feel like the strength of this film is the casting. And it's crazy, dude. You have such a strong resemblance to Elvis. I don't know if you've ever heard that before landing this movie or not, but I think even more so, you look a lot like Austin as well. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it. So it's interesting. Your version of the younger Elvis, it kind of paints this like canvas of what really inspired him, his early music influences, and your role is a very physical one. It really is. So it's like Elvis
Yeah.
Unchained. It's you're just expressing yourself through dance and curiosity. So what I find interesting again is like this was shot throughout the pandemic. So it brings its own challenges right there on top of just being on this mega Hollywood set for the very first time. So I know you kind of spoke about it in terms of your progression in getting the role. Day one on set, were the nerves kicking in? How are you feeling when the camera was actually rolling?
I think I actually felt pretty good. I mean, it was this whole
Yeah.
thing that, he spent these 2, 3 weeks. I know the movement. I know what the movement means to me, It had really
Mm-hmm.
settled within me, within my soul that I was like, I feel comfortable in understanding what I'm doing. And like exactly how you said, it wasn't Baz testing to see if I could do the role. It was Baz helping me, be able to do the role to the best of
Yeah.
my ability. And that's completely what I did. So by the time that, it was the first day of shooting on set and it was the first time where the cameras were rolling and everything that I was going on, I felt not just ready, but I felt excited, because, it was the best experience of my life, especially the tent scene, which is actually the first one that
Yeah.
we filmed. That was the first one out of everything that we did that we filmed. That was the first part. And I remember that whole day, just again and again, every single time I did it, like it was always so exciting, you know, just so fulfilling, like to be able to do that and to be able to be a part of that, of such a large scale, was so much fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, man, those dance moves can really like, dude, those skills were full display. And it was just, again, like Elvis Unchained, dude. It's just that free spirit, right? Where he's just going with the music, with all the gospel singers. And it's just, I find it so just natural. But even though, like, of course, in this set of like a movie and just everything's choreographed, this and that, but you just made it so just effortless almost. And I think that's a great testament to you. So, how many takes did that scene take of you just like jamming out with all the gospel singers?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you. I do really appreciate that. I'm always so thankful, when people have such kind of words to say, about my part in the film. And so I really do appreciate that.
No, my
But
pleasure, man. My pleasure.
yeah, I think it came down to you know, as part of that rehearsal process, the most important part was not just the movement, that whole movement, but really understanding where it comes from. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so when I would rehearse, I put together this whole playlist of Elvis songs, because I didn't know any of his music. So as part of that, I'd put together all these Elvis songs, and I'd grab my AirPods, and I would sort of just try to really really feel it within my soul, as I did mention
Yeah.
before, and just sort of really find the connection to that. And yeah, so that when it came to the filming of the movement, it felt right. I knew where it was coming from and what it meant. You know what I mean, and how intense it was, and where I was meant to deliver at. You know what I mean? And so, but to be honest with you, that whole experience in the tent was so alive because
Yeah.
everything that was going on felt real anyway. And the reason it looked, how did you describe it? Like it looked so easy to do it or something,
It,
or
it
it
was
looked
just
so
like free
natural.
spirit. It was just natural, right? It was just
The
friends
reason,
hanging out. Yeah, right?
yeah, the reason I feel like that tent looked like that was, it came down to the amount of dedication, effort, and detail that Baz had put into creating that scene. He put together this group of people in the tent, and everything that was going on. There was that real music, and there was that real gospel feel, and you know, it was
Yeah,
so
yeah.
up, you know, so much going on that it felt like all I had to do was be alive and just be reactant to everything that was going on with me and feel everything that was going on. And you know, I think that's why you know, it could sort of look so natural, I guess, in the way that you say it is, you know, because of how much help I had within the scene. Yeah.
Yeah, it just looks like it was almost a safe space where everyone's just allowed to be just themselves and just free flow. And as you mentioned, it's all about that experience you had weeks prior to actually getting the cameras rolling, is where you felt comfortable in it. And I think that's what just shows off, like, just on the movie itself. It doesn't feel like one of those choreographed high school musical dances, right? Where everyone just starts busting out into dancing. So I think that's great. And this movie is really about so many different timelines and different decades, where it starts with you in many ways and it almost ends with you as well. It brings the bookend as well. So although you didn't share a scene with Austin Butler, did you have much interaction with him on set? I had Helen Thompson on the show, who plays Elvis's mom. I guess your mom, technically, in the movie, and she spoke glowingly about how present he was and his commitment to the role. So, what are your memories of working with Austin?
Yes, exactly that. I'm like, yes. Like the first the first time that I met Austin, it was lunch, it was break, and I got my food and I was heading back, you know, and you know, sort of walking back, you know, sort of getting myself ready, and you know, I'm sort of walking like this, and then out of the makeup room comes
Yeah,
Austin Butler, and he's in full hair, full costume, like everything going on, and we sort of cross paths like that. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
he's heading towards his trailer. He's you know, surrounded by about three people, and when he walks out, and I spot him for the first time, it was like that. You
yeah.
know,
It's like
like
Elvis, right? It's like literally.
this whole like field of energy just sort of, you know, like I don't know what the word is, like you know, it just sort of,
Yeah, like this aura about him. There was like this like
yeah,
energy, right? Like, yeah, you nailed it. Yeah,
sort of poured out from him, you know. And you know, when you were there and you sort of saw him, there was exactly this strong presence about him. You know what I mean? That, you know,
yeah,
really just captured you for a second, you know, blew you away for a second. And you know, he was walking into his trailer, and just sort of as he passes, he catches on the outside of his eye, he sees me, and he actually turned back around and starts heading towards me. And he comes up to me and he introduces, and he's got his accent on. He's got his accent on. He's like, "Oh, hi, I'm Austin. Like, oh, it's so nice to meet you. You know, and oh, Baz has told me so much about you. You know, I heard you play tennis. I heard, you know, you he told me about, you know, your experiences so far. You know how you did." And he just, it was so like he took the time out of his day and his time to actually come up to me and talk to me and interact with me. You know what I mean? Which I think was one of the kindest things, you know, that he could have done. And he took that time out of his day, and, you know, we had a wonderful chat. And yeah, and then that was the first time that I met him. And yeah, there was just this presence about, like, I cannot explain it enough, that there was just this full presence about him, that it was just like that was Elvis. You know what I mean? Almost the same feeling that you get when you sort of watch him on camera, where you're
yeah,
like, you know what I mean?
yeah.
And
That's
so I ran into him a couple more times, and then I think it was at the premiere, so a year and a half later, that I ran into him again at the Gold Coast premiere. I remember Helen was talking to you about it, I think, and so yeah, that's why I ran into to Austin again, and you know, he spotted me again, and he was like, "Oh, Chaydon," and he just came up and he gave me this huge hug and just fully embraced me. You know what I mean? And he was such a heartwarming person. You know what I mean? And he's just so kind. You know what I mean? And he's just an absolute gem of a person, if you know
yeah.
what I mean.
Yeah, you know, that's like the
So,
like the common denominator in every conversation I've had with anyone that's worked with Austin or has been around him, is that he's just a genuine kind soul. And I think that comes across on screen, where he's playing this character that's going through these feelings and just going through so much different evolution of himself as Elvis in the movie. And I think it's great that a leading man like him just takes the time out of his day to speak to everyone on set and create that family. And I love that about Austin Butler. And I think it's interesting how you kind of brought up how you kind of met him a year and a half later at the Gold Coast premiere, but now you're not really meeting Elvis, you're meeting Austin. No longer he's got the black hair, the voice. Was it a little, okay, is this, do you get what I mean? Was it a little big of a change for you, personally speaking, to Austin the man?
Get what you mean. Yeah, I get what you mean. I mean, his hair was the way that he normally wears it. He's got such cool hair as well. But no, I mean the presence was still there, 100%. You know what I mean? It was definitely way more, just heartfelt and heartwarming to be able to see him again. And I was like a foot taller when he saw. And so, but yeah, but I think there was still 100% that presence about him. You know what I mean? Where everything just sort of seemed to circulate, around him. You know what I mean? And I think for someone to be able to do that and learn how to do that, I think also signifies their amount of talent, experience, and dedication towards the, for sure.
Yeah, it's funny how you bring that up. You see photos of yourself, or just even seeing you in the movie versus seeing you at like the premieres and just on the press tour and stuff like that. It's like almost two different people, man. It's like 2 years. It's a long time, especially when you're like just growing at that age. So when you watched the movie for the first time, what was your initial reaction? Because you're on the screen in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I actually didn't expect it to be like the first 10 minutes. I sort of expected it to sort of be halfway through. And yeah, I mean, obviously, like the first thing that I got from everyone, when everyone else sort of got the opportunity to watch it, was that everyone was like, "You look like you're 5. Like, why do you look like this?" Because a person can change a lot in a year. You know what I mean? And but I remember, going to the premiere, and that was the first time that I got to watch the film, and seeing myself sort of there for the first 10 minutes. Also for the first, inside the first 10 minutes of the film, sort of see everyone else, and looking upon everyone else and seeing how much they're enjoying it and embracing it. And, I was, I was so, I don't know what I was so excited, you know what I mean? That everyone was sort of enjoying it so much. And, that really hit me where I was, wow, now that the film is out and, all of these people seem to really be enjoying it. Like I'm so excited that, I finally get to be able to sort of share this with the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Was it almost like a sigh of like relief where you're like, all right, I got my scene out of the way? Because if you're hoping for your scene to be like in the midway through the movie or the latter half, you're almost kind of just nervous trying to wait for your scene almost, right? Do you think it was kind of in like hindsight, you're like happy that it was just at the start of the movie?
I think I think it was good that it was at the start of the movie, because then for the rest of the movie I could actually enjoy Austin rather than like, nice scene. Like, I'm nervous about it. I hope it's not bad. But yeah. And so I think that it was good. It was the first 10 minutes. What I didn't expect was at the end of the film me to appear again running. Yeah. So I remember doing that part, and that wasn't significant at all. That was sort of, I mean, out of everything else that I was doing, that part of where I'm holding my my necklace and I'm running across, that didn't feel, I mean, it was still, there was still so much going on to it, but it didn't feel like the most significant part. And I think the way that Baz was able to sort of use that moment and incorporate it into the end of the film and make it so much more significant in the meaning. I just thought that was really incredible. And when you hear people talk about it and you're like, oh man, like at the end of the film when you came back at the end, and oh man, I started tearing up. I was like, yeah, I like, out of every single part, I did not expect that to be the part where someone would tear up. But yeah, I thought it was really amazing.
No, it was kind of mentioned up top where kind of your character, your version of Elvis, it kind of starts the movie and it also bookends it as well. Because at that very last scene, and we can get into spoiler talk at this point, it's been 2 months since the movie's been out. You can watch the movie online now if you'd like. Go watch it in theaters still, go right ahead. I think it's great how in that little span of 10 seconds, you see the past, the present of Elvis. You see where he came from that just wild-eyed child who was just going after his destiny that he didn't even know, to Elvis, this megastar, and then almost this tragic figure of Elvis, where he is in that moment. I think that really, I felt it too, man. When I saw that scene, I'm like, oh, this is just plays perfectly. Where in a span of literally, like I said, 10 seconds, you kind of get that full circle moment.
Yeah, definitely. You know what I mean? And I think it was just the the amount of effort that I again I say Baz and especially Austin put into the film, to make that sort of that final act so significant. Like I remember where like that final part of the film was so strong. You know what I mean? And it was so
Yeah.
powerful. And Austin's delivery in the film the whole way through was just so eye capturing, and it blew me away the whole time when I was watching him. And it was so amazing to watch. And then to see that final act go out and see how it was all put together and built up. I thought it was amazing, and I was really happy with it. Yeah.
So the movie comes out, gets this crazy reception. People have seen it multiple times. I've seen it a few times in the theater myself, and I think this movie is like meant to be seen on the big screen because of like the musical numbers and just the Baz Luhrmann type of film that he makes, right? It totally is. It's meant to be seen with the loudest audio, biggest screen. Movie comes out, amazing response. Has life changed for you since the release of the film?
You know what? I've actually, as I said before, gotten to meet a lot of really amazing people. I've gotten the opportunity to, really build a team, a really good supporting team that, will really now further my career and really help me within the industry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think for the opportunity of that film to really, for the film to give me the opportunity to really surround myself with such a great team who's constantly helping me within the industry, I think is a really wonderful gift to have. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's put this all together. What's your takeaway from working on this film, and what's something you hope you carry forward with you in your journey as an actor?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like this film was, being a part of this and filming it was the best experience that I've had in my life. The significance of it, the energy of it, the intensity of it, and everything that was going on and building up was, the best experience that I've ever had. And I think, especially after doing that really even furthered, my passion in screenplay acting, and where I could really understand this is what it is. Like, this is what it can be. It can be this. And I think that's where it really started, where it was, I if I were to be doing anything else in my life, I don't think I'd be happy. You know what I mean? Especially after you get to experience something like that. And so yeah, I think it's really ignited my passion even further than what it was. And yeah, it's been really exciting to be a part of.
Right on. Well, hey, let's talk a little bit about that future and just the next steps for you. So, what interests you? What kind of roles are the dream roles for you? It sounds like maybe like working with DiCaprio or Joaquin Phoenix. From what I'm taking, those would be the dream roles. But what interests you as an actor?
Yeah, I'm actually really glad you asked that question, actually, because yeah, I mean obviously my taste in film, I really enjoy sort of those depthful, heavy sort of films that have so much going on. You know what I mean? Like, I just recently watched June, and I know that I'm pretty sure that Austin is in June Part Two as well. I think I saw.
Yeah, I think he said he's one of the main characters in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is so exciting. I can't wait for that. He's gonna be so good. But yeah, I remember just like watching June for the second time again, like the other day, and just not just like the performances, but the whole part of that film. There was so much depth to everything that was going on. The shots of it, the way that it was written, and all of the performances. There was always so much depth to what was going on, and I think watching that and seeing that is always so exciting. When you get to watch something like that, and again, that's something that you get really inspired by. You're like,
yeah, you get excited by it, right? It's such a big movie, but in so many ways, it's like an art house movie where it's you've got this $1 million freaking budget, but at the same time, there's no wasted scene where everyone's got that, whether it's Timothy Chalamet or Zendaya's character, and now I'm sure in the second one, Austin's character, it hits hard, eh?
Oh man, to see a scene with like Timothy Chalamet is ridiculously talented, and to see a scene with like Timothy Chalamet and Austin Butler, and they sort of go like head to head. Oh man, that like
I don't know if the world's ready for that, man. I don't think we're ready for that just yet.
I don't think anyone's ready, to be honest with you. I think that'll be really, really exciting. And so yeah, I mean I really enjoy sort of films like that, and like Shutter Island, or like and any sort of films that have this gravity towards them, the heaviness, you know what I mean, and they sort of have that depth to them. That's what I always really enjoy doing, and those complex roles. Joaquin Phoenix and Joker, my favorite performance all the time. Something like that. It's just the amount that there is to everything that was going on was ridiculous. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think those things definitely inspire me for sure.
It's fascinating for someone your age who is just breaking into the industry more and more. You would think that someone would say, "Oh, I'm going to be in the MCU, like in a Marvel movie or a DC movie," and those are great movies in their own right. I love those equally as much, and it's interesting. You're probably one of the few young actors that I've spoken to that didn't say that right off the bat, where they're like, "Hey, I want to be X and X in the MCU." So I think that's pretty cool, dude. That's cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think like obviously those opportunities would still be amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The amount those films is ridiculous, but yeah, I definitely do get more of that like excitement and that inspiration when even when I get a script that's sort of got this that gravity towards it, that heaviness, that depth to it, that it really does excite you, just that extra distance.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's awesome, man. And hey, as we wrap up with Chaydon Jay, it is now time for a segment I call the final act. Chaydon, I'm going to ask you 10 rapid fire questions about your likes and your dislikes. And I just want the first word that pops in your mind. But here's the catch. I'm going to give you 1 minute to try to get through them all. You up for it?
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm on a timer. Okay. Oh.
Movies or TV shows?
Movies.
Watch at home or at a movie theater?
At a movie theater.
Favorite TV show?
Come on, give me something, man.
Better call.
You know what?
What's the last show you watched? What's the last show you watched? Remember?
You know what? I'm just starting to watch Peaky Blinders. I think that's really good. I think that's got potential. Next, just give it to me.
All right. Favorite movie sequel?
The sequel, like favorite second movie.
Yeah, the second one. Yeah.
Well, how many movie sequels are there? All right.
Let's say Lord of the Rings, The Dark Knight, Back to the Future, The Godfather.
That's a great one. That's a really good one.
Dark Knight, right on. All right, some Elvis-based questions. Favorite Elvis song?
Oh, Suspicious Mind.
Favorite scene in the movie besides your own?
Oh, I think it was that final scene for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
How many times have you seen the movie?
Twice. Summer
or fall?
I think fall. We call it autumn, but yeah.
Or autumn. Fall. Yeah, okay. All right, right on. This pineapple belong on pizza?
I'm gonna say yes.
Chaydon, if you were off to such a great start, bro, and then you had to bring that pineapple on that pizza. Dude. All right. And you know what? Lastly, let's wrap up with this. Describe the movie Elvis in one word.
I'm just going to say exciting. I'm gonna go with the word exciting. I mean that's the word that I use most. A lot more to it, but I'm trying to think of like what else to say. But yeah, I just think really uplift like that. It's gonna be exciting. Jeez.
Exciting. Bam. Hey, listen, you killed it at that. First time guest on the show, so we'll ignore the clock just a little. We spent over a couple of 10 seconds. I'll shave those off, but hey, it's all good.
I started really well. I was like, this is easy. You went favorite TV show. I was like,
It's either that one or the favorite sequel, that's one that stumps everyone. I feel like everyone starts off and then bam, it's like, right?
Dark Knight, that's a really good one. That's a really good sequel. But
And again, back to the Joker, right? It just kills it in that movie. Heath Ledger, fellow Aussie, right?
I think that's gonna be my favorite. I know they're making a second one now. I heard, is it Lady Gaga that got confirmed to play the?
Yeah, apparently she's playing like Harley Quinn in the movie.
Oh, what?
Apparently, that's what I read.
At first I was like, but then like to think of it, that it goes from like, you know, the Joker that we've all, you know, hopefully we've all seen, you know, and the amount of heaviness there is to that, to then go, you know, to I heard like it's a bit more of a musical. I mean, I don't know that much, but from the rumors that I hear of what it's going to now, I think it's actually really exciting to see what happens with that film. And so if you interviewed me like a year later, I would say that probably.
Well, you know, I think it's interesting because I feel like we've shared this love of the character of the Joker, and I absolutely love that character. And I think it's, you got to find a way to reinvent it somehow, right? You can't do what Heath Ledger did, and you can't even do what they did in the first Joker. Now you have to kind of go left field with it, and I think that's where the musical aspect of it comes in, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think either way it's going to be exciting. So.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, Chaydon, thank you so much for coming to hang on the show. You've just been an awesome guest, and like I mentioned up top, you're literally on the opposite end of the worlds right now. But hey, the beauty of technology connects us together, and we're just chatting about our love of film and cinema, and of course our love of Elvis. So once again, congrats on the success of the film. I'm really happy for you and the praise you're getting for this role. So well deserved, and I'm just excited to see what's next for you. The sky is the limit, and I wish you all the best. You know what? I'm going to take you up on that. A year from now, we'll do this again, and we'll talk about your next projects, and we'll talk about the Joker some more then.
All right. Sounds good. We'll do that. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It has been really amazing talking to you, and it seemed really, I really enjoy, being able to share, my love and my passion, with someone else who, just seems just as excited about it. So yeah.